When you think about a company's annual 10K report, you probably think it's one of the most boring documents on the planet. And you'd usually be right. But what if I told you that hidden inside hundreds of pages of tables and legalese, there's a genuine corporate thriller? It's a story of a global giant hitting a brick wall, facing a crisis of confidence, and betting its entire future on a radical new plan. So let's dive into the story of Netflix, told entirely through its official filings.
So this is how Netflix actually defines its mission. It's not just about streaming movies. It's a battle for your attention. Every single time you have a spare moment and you pick up that remote, that's what they call a moment of truth. And for years, man, they were winning those moments, seemingly without end.
All right, so our story kicks off at the absolute peak of Netflix's power. During the pandemic boom, when the service felt less like a choice and more like, well, a basic utility.
By the end of 2021, this was the number of paid memberships Netflix had across the globe. Just let that sink in. Nearly 250 million households. The scale was just immense, and that growth engine was running hotter than ever before.
And check this out. This is the raw data right from the heart of the pandemic. In 2020 alone, as the whole world was locking down, Netflix added over 36 million subscribers. You can see it right here, huge additions in every single region. They weren't just a big company, they were a cultural phenomenon, and it really seemed like that growth would never ever stop.
But then, the script totally flipped. The unstoppable growth story that had defined Netflix for a decade suddenly and shockingly just came to a halt. And here it is. This is the moment everything changed. This data is for the United States and Canada, which is their most profitable market. For years and years, that column for paid net membership additions was always a positive number. But in 2022, for the first time, we see parentheses around the number. And in the world of accounting, that means it's a negative.
They didn't just have slow growth. They literally lost almost 1 million subscribers in their home market. After a decade of just defying gravity, the king of streaming was bleeding customers. You can bet Wall Street was stunned. And inside Netflix, the alarm bells were absolutely screaming.
I mean, this wasn't just a bad quarter. It felt like the end of an era. It was a fundamental challenge to the entire identity of Netflix and its promise of perpetual growth. The big question was, what in the world were they going to do now? A crisis forces you to change. And facing its biggest challenge yet, Netflix completely rewrote its own playbook. This is the story of their comeback plan, pulled right from the filings.
Now, this sentence, kind of buried in their most recent 10K, might seem boring, but it is a revolution. For years, a core part of the Netflix promise was no ads, period. But facing a crisis, the company officially changed its tune, opening the door to a completely new way of making money.
And that was just part one of a two-pronged attack. The full plan was this: launch a cheaper tier with ads to bring in new subscribers, and at the exact same time, go after the tens of millions of people who were using shared passwords. It was a bold and, honestly, a pretty risky strategy.
Okay, so one of the most fascinating parts of a 10K is the risk factor section. It's where the company has to legally tell investors everything that could possibly go wrong. By comparing these sections over time, we get this incredible peek inside the corporate mindset.
So look at this. Back in 2021, their worries were pretty standard big tech concerns, right? But in their latest filing, 2 new fears have jumped way up the list. Labor disputes, which is a clear nod to the Hollywood strikes, and, get this, the use of generative artificial intelligence. It just shows you how much their world has changed. The threats are no longer just technical, they're creative, and, you could argue, existential.
So, Netflix faced a crisis, and they rolled out a whole new playbook. But did it work? The final chapter of this story is right here in the numbers.
Wow, this chart really says it all. Remember that shocking loss of nearly 1 million subscribers in North America back in 2022? Well, just look at the rebound. In 2023, they added back almost 6 million subscribers and then followed that up with nearly 4 million more in 2024. The password crackdown and the ad tier didn't just stop the bleeding, they ignited a whole new wave of growth.
And globally, the result is a brand new all-time high. By the start of 2025, Netflix had completely blown past its previous record, reaching over 302 million paid members worldwide. The comeback was complete.
So when you look at the data, it's clear Netflix engineered a massive turnaround. They stared into the abyss, they changed their core business model, and they came out stronger than ever. But as their own risk factors show, new challenges like AI and labor relations are always on the horizon. Which, leaves us with the big question. Was this the final act, or was it just the setup for the next season?